Welcome to Perspectives in Mobile, the news podcast from the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. Join us discussing the world of telecommunications, technology, and mobile innovations. From Florence, Ricardo Amati.
Africa's mobile industry is making headlines. Mobile use is growing rapidly. Over-the-top services are changing how people communicate, and richer messaging services are becoming important for financial services and business communications. At the same time, mobile operators are facing pressures from fluctuating pricing, rising fraud, and changing customer expectations, all amid economic uncertainty and intense competition. Welcome to MEF Podcast Perspectives in Mobile. I'm Ricardo Amati. Joining us today is Matt Ekram, a program chief at the Mobile Ecosystem Forum and a leading expert in global business development, product management, mobile communication services, and regulatory and security issues. Welcome, Matt. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Rick. Pleasure to be here.
In this episode, we will explore the main insights from the recent Mobile Ecosystem Forum event in Cape Town, South Africa. We will discuss how African mobile operators can turn challenges into opportunities, look at the rise of richer messaging in financial services, examine practical approaches to managing risk and fraud, and highlight strategies for reaching underserved customers and driving growth, which is the big challenge for Africa. Uh, First of all, Matt, could you start by summarizing the main things and takeaways from the MEF event in Cape Town, which was 3 weeks ago, isn't it? Especially what stood out regarding Africa's telecom landscape.
Yeah, so a bit of a background about the event. So MEF actually were there as part of the MEF Leadership Forum Africa. So in conjunction with the Africa Tech Festival, which is a multi-day festival 3 weeks ago in Cape Town. So MEF actually has a program separately at a different location, and we have our own leadership forum attended by many of the participants there. So to the point about the big takeaway from the Africa Tech, festival and what we saw in Cape Town is that, it is no longer connect first, monetize later phase. It is moving to scaling digital engagement, monetizing API, and protecting trust at the same time. And you mentioned some of these in your introduction. These three themes really stood out. Operators are shifting from pure connectivity to platforms, the rise of CPaaS and richer messaging as the engagement layer, and an urgent focus on fraud regulation and consumer trust as traffic, value move into digital channel. So what impressed me about Africa telecom landscape and what I saw in Cape Town is how normal it is or has become to talk about mobile money, super apps, CPaaS, AI, and network API in the same breath. That the combination of advanced digital use cases, with the need for ongoing coverage and affordability challenges is uniquely African, and it forces the ecosystem and the industry to provide much more creative business model.
I mean, one realizes when covering stories from Africa about the mobile ecosystem is the energy that we can see. The trend is probably the same that we have in other parts of the world, but there is like more urgency at the moment. Probably it's just my impression. I don't know. You were there. In your view, what makes this moment so critical for Africa's mobile ecosystem? And is very, very, uncertain analysis correct? Do you see this energy? And what about the energy that you see, if you see?
Oh yeah, it's definitely energy. There's a lot of it's well attended. The festival and the MEF forum has been growing year by year. But when you talk about this being a critical moment, this is the critical moment because the old growth engine, traditional voice, SMS, basic data are flattening, and that's true everywhere else in the world, and it's also applied to Africa. While OTTs, fintech, big tech are capturing more of the customer relationship and value. So meanwhile, regulators are tightening, on data protection and KYC, know your customer. And AI is actually changing, as well in Africa, how both services are delivered and how fraudsters operate. So operators have to reinvent their role very quickly. So compared to 5, 10 years ago, the conversation, the discussion has shifted from, how do we connect more people to how do we orchestrate identity, payment, engagement across networks, apps, and API. So the Africa mobile ecosystem is now more app-centric, API-driven, with mobile money, wallets, digital merchants embedded into everyday life in many, many of the markets there.
And on your opinion, are we still, okay, that's the trend, but are we still at early innings or are some markets already mature from what you observed in Africa?
Yeah, good question. So it is. My view is that Africa is in mid-journey. Some markets look very mature, very high mobile money penetration, active enterprise messaging, such as South Africa, sophisticated regulator, while others are still wrestling with basic coverage, device affordability, and digital literacy. So the session that we have in Cape Town consistently contrasted advanced East and West African markets with countries where feature phones and USSD still dominate. So it just shows to you how uneven the map of Africa remain. So for example, on digital and messaging transformation, specifically with CPaaS and which channels, so for example, which CPaaS and which channels are clearly out of the pilot phase. The banks, logistic players, governments are running real programs on top of the telco and CPaaS platforms. But there's still huge headroom in areas like enterprise API, data monetization, and AI-driven customer engagement. So there's an early innings with pockets of maturity is probably the best characterization of Africa.
Mhm. One even talking to uh, some people in the industry, they were even stunned by the way financial services are, bringing RCS and something which is not even happening in Europe or even less in the US probably. And in Africa for financial services, it works. And I know even, knowing about the continent there, is so important because people, in villages, in some
Yep.
faraway places, and they don't have banks. So it's so important for them. So what recent data and case studies discussed, at MEF or even in Cape Town or in your discussions during the last months. What data or case studies show that these are no longer just a niche, but becoming, in certain markets, more and more important, just mainstream, probably.
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is the evidence that mobile financial services and rich messaging are mainstream in some parts of Africa. So in several African markets, what we have, what we have seen, in Cape Town, the mobile money transaction volumes and the value now rival or exceed card transactions. So I repeat that, the mobile money transaction volumes and values exceed the card, the traditional credit card transaction. And digital wallets are often the first financial product many users ever hold. So, because, mobile phone is ubiquitous and is much more accessible to many, rural and urban as well. So this was reflected in the Cape Town by the number of case studies where mobile money is tightly integrated with customer journeys like lending, insurance, and merchant payments. On the messaging side, brands are increasingly treating RCS, WhatsApp, and CPaaS, how orchestration of the flow as core channel for onboarding consumers, notification, and customer care. So this is not an experimental add-on. Some of the strongest example come from banking, travel, and logistics. So some of the strongest example of this come from banking, travel, and logistics. Where rich messaging has significantly improved conversion and reduce support costs compared with legacy SMS or just the purely call center only approaches. Yeah.
So Matt, would you say that the biggest opportunities for telcos leveraging, business in Africa are RCS, CPAs, and this
Yep.
kind of stuff? Yeah, these are
Yeah. So I think
probably
from our perspective, the clearest near-term opportunity is the enterprise to consumer engagement. So enterprise to consumer engagement, secure notification, marketing, customer support, two-factor authentication, delivering across SMS, RCS, OTT, and voice from a
different
single.
channels depending on
Yeah, right,
on what you
exactly.
need.
Yeah, from a single CPaaS layer. So yeah. So and then there are opportunities where in enterprise these opportunities lie. So public service and utilities, like your internet problem, the public service verified alerts, reminders, citizen engagement at
Yes,
scale.
we were talking with
Yeah.
Matt, just to explain to our audience before the recording. Matt and I, we were talking about internet outage in Italy, not in Africa, in Italy, which is, okay. Anyway, so go ahead.
So yeah, so just to continue, where opportunities lies, in logistic and mobility, so real, just having real-time trusted communication between platforms, drivers, and end users. There's a lot of movement. People still drive trucks and containers across the Africa continent. So there's a lot of potential for increasing the usage of communication, and especially trusted communication. SMB, we talk about the SME, a small medium enterprise, to enable them, giving them low cost access to the same engagement tools large enterprise that uses. So CPaaS, aggregators and CPaaS and operators have a critical role to play to enable SMEs.
On the flip side, you were mentioning fraud, regulatory, security, privacy challenges. What are the main concerns, or at least what were the main concerns raised at the MEF event in Cape Town?
Yeah. So the big concern is that, as messaging, with focusing on messaging as becoming richer and more interactive, it also allows fraudsters to gain a more powerful toolkit for social engineering, impersonation, and just purely scam, or all various kind of scam. So there is an anxiety about, I think there's an anxiety in general from the ecosystem, the operators, about losing user trust if customers, if your consumer cannot easily distinguish between legitimate, with invalid rich messages from the sophisticated scams, especially in the banking and government, which is kind of where the scams tends to proliferate. So what they have to do is they have to, we were urging to invest in AI-driven fraud detection, strengthening your KYC, your know your customer, build a sender ID. MEF provide a sender ID verification service to some other our customers in the UK. So the adopting that sender ID verification could be essential, and brand registry, verified sender program across SMS, RCS, and OTT. So this require collaboration with regulators on data protection, consent management, cross-border traffic. So so there's still a patchwork of efforts that's to be done across the continent.
Not just in Africa. I think
Yeah,
it's
right.
very much a
A
global
global
issue. But about Africa. Of course, there are the problem is network expansion. There are places where still, people doesn't have internet, doesn't have connection. Um, how how can this develop? How could this? How should this be improved quickly? Is there a way, a magic formula for that? Probably not. What would you expect on that?
Yeah. So I think what you're referring to is, what is the business model and the go-to-market strategies
To
for
get
uh,
to
for
get
African
everywhere, to get
yeah, to
everywhere
get everywhere, yeah, for African
in countries
operators.
where there are very
Yeah,
remote
right.
areas.
Yeah. So there is a combination. So the way I look at it, the strategies that works well is combining connectivity, messaging, and financial services into an integrated proposition instead of selling each in isolation. So for example, that includes bundles for consumer and SME where data, mobile money, and communication tools come together in one offer and one experience. So the other example is enterprise and API, led revenue is another major pillar. So we should expose messaging, identity, location, and network quality as API. So enterprise and developers can build on top of the telco asset. Um, so targeting the underserved, the communities, rural, um, migrants population, segments that are typically not addressed. So so we need to address that. So pay as you go services, creating a vertical solution for industries like logistics, healthcare, or agriculture. So these are ways that operators could pursue to unlock some growth in the market. Yeah,
Matt, are
yeah,
you thinking about some particular case study
yeah,
or success stories when you're describing this?
yeah. So what I'm hearing is that they have several case studies that shows and I think the theme is that when operators tightly integrate mobile money with messaging-based customer journey, they see higher transaction frequency, better repayment behavior, and lower churn. For example, when you use conversational flows for loan application, repayment reminders, and support can make credit products both safer and more user-friendly than just traditional one-way SMS. So another pattern that we saw was telcos partnering with CPaaS providers to deliver verified branded messaging for banks and retailers. So this will lead to higher engagement, fewer fraud-related complaints than just generic SMS from unknown numbers. So there are already example of operators, or exposing network identity API so that third-party developers could build innovative services, creating new ecosystem revenue without the operator having to design, every service themselves. Yeah.
Another thing is that when we talk about Africa, we talk about that as if it was an homogeneous continent. Of course, it's not. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big continent. And there are
Yeah.
many differences between different countries. Did participants at the MEF event in Cape Town highlight notable differences between regions? For example, East Africa is different from West Africa. I mean, they don't speak Swahili in West Africa. It's another story. Or North and South. North is more, even let's say influenced by Arabic culture, and South is probably less than that. So all those differences in what do they mean for the mobile ecosystem maturity for the point of view of an operator strategy, for example. Of course, you need to take in account that Africa is not just one thing.
Mhm.
And how could
Yep.
you do that?
Yeah. So so basically, as you kind of summarize the question, you know, there are section of Africa that is still, has lower mobile internet penetration. There's some usage gap, some network, expansion of the 4G, even early 5G, satellite, alternatives needs to be there. So, the consensus among the at least in Cape Town is that this is neither or. So but the emphasis is shifting. I mean, there is still large areas in Africa with limited 4G coverage. And, there's still big gap in Africa when it comes to internet usage, affordability, and accessibility. So yes, they need to continue. And, we're talking about partnership, with private, municipal, regional, cities. So there's a lot of discussion going on in Africa around how do we build this cross continent or intra-continent
You know, at the end of the
collaboration. Yeah.
at the end of the day, Matt, the question is, let's take an operator that wants to do successful business in Africa. Could be African, could be European, American, Asian, whatever. Should the operator take in account like tailored local strategies? I mean, different strategies
Yeah.
for different countries. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
this is
no, definitely. I was at the panel. I was actually hosting a panel at Africa Tech, whereby we have the the Association of Tech Companies from Nigeria on a panel, the Association of Tech Companies, the CEO of Association of Tech Companies from Kenya. We have the city of Cape Town. We also have some regional provider, which is part of Telecom Cell, which is a big South African operator. So so it is, what I'm hearing is that each each country, region, city has to really understand, the challenge, and every one of them is unique. I know city of Cape Town is different than the country of Nigeria. So it's have different challenges and different way of
absolutely.
approaching that problem. Yeah. So
So
then they have
operators
to
forget about
how
Africa as a whole.
right.
It's
Yeah,
lots
yeah,
of
yeah.
countries, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably
So and
the
right.
characteristic is anyway the energy and the potential, everything.
Yeah.
Is not just in the telco or the system or the mobile ecosystem. Probably in many things, Africa is full of energy. Going forward, Matt, what are the top three of or whatever 5, 1, 2 developments in tech and regulatory systems in the market that you expect will shape the telecom mobile ecosystem in the next 2 5 years in this continent we're talking about?
Yeah. So good question. So what I would say over the next few years, 3 to 5 years, I see several developments that will shape the Africa mobile ecosystem. First one is the rise of CPaaS, Network and Identity API, as a core telco products.
And
So
probably
this
this
will
is the fil
enable,
rouge of this
yeah,
discussion, isn't it, Matt?
yeah,
We were
right,
talking
yeah,
from the beginning till the end about CPaaS.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So CPaaS will play a key role. Network Identity API, API as a core telco products. So this will enable new B2B and B2B, B2C revenue streams. So B2B as well as B2B, B2C revenue streams. So there is, and I think that's the first one. The second one is we need to continue the expansion and regulation of mobile financial services. I think mobile, anything to do with mobile money, wallet, loans, money transfer, micro loans services. That will be I guess, the catalyst for growth in many of the African markets, diaspora. And, but it needs to be with tighter, KYC, data protection, and interoperability framework across the continent. So, and, this is pretty, and I guess, pretty and maybe obvious that AI will be embedded everywhere. In fact, somebody was telling me that, I think it was Kenya or somebody, that they use more Chat GPT than the rest of the world.
Right.
Somebody was, it
That's
wasn't maybe,
interesting.
yeah, exactly.
I,
That's
I
interesting.
didn't
Somebody
see
was
I
telling me
didn't
that,
see
yeah,
the data, but that's interesting.
yeah. I mean, I could probably search research, but I think somebody was telling me that, in one of this African market actually has the highest usage of Chat GPT than anywhere in the world. So, yeah, AI will be embedded everywhere: network, customer engagement, marketing, fraud prevention. So, of course, and then messaging, we know SMS will be blended to, RCS, OTT, in-app channel, and of course we need this whole, the whole messaging ecosystem to be stronger in terms of trust framework and, verifiable identity, so that, no fraud, less fraud is happening there. So, and then on the 5G side, deployment of 5G is definitely, smart cities has a different, model than, rural.
IoT, smart cities, this.
Yep. Right. Yep.
Yeah, right. Finally, Matt, our listeners are investors, telcos, developers, policymakers, probably. What's the one key message you want them to take away from your experience, your recent experience at MEF Cape Town event?
Yep.
And about this discussion about Africa's telecom future that we had.
Yep.
What's the takeaway you would tell to
Yep.
our audience?
Yeah, so I think one key message I have for our listeners on, Africa telecom future is that the telecom future will belong to operators, tech, partners, tech service providers, tech CPaaS that turn their network, their asset into a trusted, intelligent platform. So very clear. You have a network, whether you own a infrastructure, 5G, whether you own a messaging ecosystem, whether you are a WhatsApp provider or, deliver, kind of part of, or any part of that flavor, you have to turn that into a trusted, intelligent platform. So connecting people not just to the internet, so, I mean, we don't want the operators just to focus on connecting people to the internet, but to identity, money, and other services in ways that fit local. So so this is like, as a global company, you have to think local. So you have to understand your local market and how all of these pieces fit together in a local market, whether it's the city of Cape Town, whether it's the country of Kenya or Nigeria or Rwanda. So, so these are, those of us who embrace the CPaaS model, the API, AI, strong fraud control that enable, startup and enterprise to innovate on top of their network, will capture more value than those who stay focused on just purely, offering SIM, minutes and megabytes. So, offering SIM and minutes and megabyte are fine, but that's not where the future is for Africa. Yeah.
So the takeaway is beyond
Yeah.
connectivity
Yeah, beyond
and
connectivity.
trust and intelligence. This is
Yeah.
probably the takeaway from the MEF event in Cape Town a few weeks ago, and probably an advice to any operator who wants to have a business in this wonderful continent full of energy. That's all for today's conversation. A big thank you to Matt Ekram for sharing your insights on Africa's mobile industry and the key discussion from the recent Mobile Ecosystem Forum event in Cape Town. Thank you, Matt, for joining.
Thanks, Ricardo, for the opportunity. I thoroughly enjoyed very much.
We hope this episode has given you practical ideas on how mobile operators can navigate challenges, embrace new opportunities, and reach more customers across the continent in Africa. I'm Ricardo Mati. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode of MEF Podcast Perspectives. Have a great day and good luck with your work.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. Join us next as we explore telecoms, technology, and mobile innovations. Stay tuned, stay connected, and let's unlock the mobile potential together.